Hi everyone, good evening, and welcome back to Civvie Debrief. My name is Jose Pila, just in case you haven't been tuning in. and welcome back. And if you're just starting the show, this is Civvie Debrief, and this is a little bit of a different take on a conversation that a veteran has with either civilians or his other military buddies. And we're going to be talking a little bit about our previous episode, which we had with Mark Dewey, and a little bit of a discussion about how his transitioning was and what we didn't mention. And today's episode is actually called The Beginning. And the reason why we're calling it that is because we're going to dive into one of the best ways that we could tell our story is to tell our own personal story. And for the first time, I'll attempt to tell my story. So with that, I'm going to introduce my co-host, Alexandra Jacques.
Hi everybody, welcome back. Glad to be here. Excited to share your story some more. I've heard it. It is a good one, but I know it's not easy for you.
No, it isn't. But we've known each other for several years now, and I know that on a lot of the stories that presentations that we've done because of the business that we've started together, we've had to tell not only my story, but our co-founder's story, Pedro De Leon, and it's been a tough journey. Yeah. But I wanted to touch a little bit on our last guest, which was Mark. But first, sorry, because you'll probably hear her, and we have a special guest, because I couldn't leave her by herself. This is
Supai.
This is Supai. My pup.
She's my best friend, though. He might own her, but she's mine.
Say hi to everyone. She's my puppy. My new puppy, because I have two other ones, which are much older. Couldn't bring them, and I can't have three dogs. Three
chilling
dogs
around here.
chilling around here. But she's a little one, so we had to bring her.
I'm not mad at it.
No, but she's really calm.
She's amazing.
Yeah. But going back to what did you think about our previous episode?
I love having Mark as a guest. That was now my third time interviewing him. We definitely didn't get as heavy last week as I have previously with him, especially his first episode when he was on Meal with a Vet.
Yeah.
But he's a great example of when you're struggling, if you find something to focus on. And for him, it was religion and his sobriety. For others, it could be health and fitness. For other people, it could be their work or their family. If you get very clear on your vision, good things will happen. And he's a perfect example of that. So I always like having him.
You touched on something. I know that when you interviewed him twice with Meal with the Vet, mm-hmm. you guys got really deep into his transitioning and some of his traumas and things like that. And I kept myself from doing that the last episode because I've known him for such a long time that, and I myself have my own traumas, and I know how difficult it can be to open up a lot of those wounds and how difficult it can be to close them.
Yeah.
And so I guess I didn't open up with him.
You were cautious.
Yeah, very, very cautious because full disclaimer, I'm not a clinician, I'm not a practicing psychologist or anything, but from my own experiences in my own life, I've come to certain realizations of my own, hardships that I think and I hope that our audience gets to relate to it and see that there is light at the end of the tunnel.
There definitely is, and he's a great example of that.
Yeah.
But I understand why, with his transition to being good now, it's so fresh. It might be, it's still a little bit of a touchy subject to revisit.
Yeah, and it wasn't just a touchy subject for him that I didn't want him to open up. I've known him, like I mentioned, I've known him for so long that I didn't want to open up wounds on either end.
Right. You're protecting yourself as well.
Yeah, because we've seen each other go through some struggles that have been very, very difficult for both of us, and so I was kind of hesitant to not allow him to open up too much.
Right.
because I didn't know if it was going to expose me, and I had to. I don't know. It was just a little hard, but today's episode
You're on the spot. You opened it up.
Yeah. Well, I guess the best way to, and you've mentioned it before on previous podcasts, that, you know, talking about it and reaching out to people and things like that, that it creates that bridge of healing.
It does.
That I've been avoiding for a really long time.
Yeah, but I mean, you've mentioned it too, when I think it was after you did not the muster across America, but the next time that you guys had to present your story, when you were the only one speaking.
Oh, that was at the UCLA.
Yes, the UCLA one. You even said when we were practicing how much easier it's gotten to tell your story, but you felt a sense of healing just from getting it out there and connecting with people and seeing people's reactions to it. You mentioned it yourself.
Yeah.
Doesn't make it easier. I mean, it
doesn't make it any easier. I always sometimes choke up even while presenting.
Yeah.
I've done presentations to investors, and, you know, a lot of the times you approach these situations like thinking that all they want is the bottom line. How much is it that you're going to be making me? And it's not the case.
No, it's really
especially
not.
when it comes to angel investors, they want to know why they should invest in you.
Right.
What makes you the right person to invest in? And a lot of the times they're looking for that struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I've had some tough times. You know, I know my family would tell you that I've had. But you know, going to the beginning, I don't have an accent, but I wasn't born here.
Right.
You know, my struggle didn't start right after the military. My struggle started, and my family struggle, not just mine. It was just a combined effort of an entire village moving, you know, from Guadalajara, Jalisco to California, to the States at 9 years old, and that struggle to, you know, I was an immigrant being brought over here by his parents. I was your, you know, poster child for that DACA program that they keep
you were
pushing away. Yeah, and fortunately for me, my father had already started the immigration process. He just decided that we needed to be in California.
Right. Did he come prior to the rest of your family coming? Or
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, my dad, and I'm sure he'll listen to this, but I honestly didn't know my father until I moved into the States, so until I was 9.
Oh, wow.
I remember this guy, you know, coming every so often, bringing presents, and yeah, I called him Dad, or, you know, Papa,
right.
But I didn't make that connection where, oh, he's, you know,
he's Dad.
Yeah, he's Dad. That emotional connection until I came to the States.
What was that like? I mean, as a 9-year-old, meeting your dad. I mean, I know you known him prior, but in all reality, you met him at 9 when you moved here. What was that transition like?
It was very difficult, actually. My when we came to the States, it wasn't, you know, that was traumatic in itself, because it was we didn't cross over with my family. So I'm a U.S. citizen now. So if you want to deport me, you guys can go to hell.
You can't.
I've served my time in the military. Anyways. But yeah, I came to this country legally. I crossed the border with some stranger, and
that's right. Was it your sister was there too, though,
and my
right?
little sister.
Yeah.
It was my little sister and me crossing the border with some complete stranger, and then waiting at a restaurant for this man that I knew him as Dad, but not with that emotional attachment.
Right.
You know, So even when he found us at the restaurant completely alone, because the lady that crossed us over ran away because she got scared, and she left a 9-year-old and an 8-year-old at a restaurant, in the bathroom of a restaurant.
Oh my goodness.
And yeah, so when I saw my dad, it wasn't that immediate connection, but it was that familiarity, like,
Right.
hey, I know who you are. Oh, thank
There's
you.
some sort of relief,
thank
at
God.
least.
You know, some sort of relief. But then even getting to know him after coming to the States, my dad and I lived on our own for a few months while my sisters, and I have 3 sisters, 2 older and 1 younger. My 2 older sisters were American citizens already. They were born here in the States.
Oh, okay.
I know my parents did it backwards. I don't know why. I have no clue why. But it was that time period that I took, those few months that I took while my family came back together and lived in
As one.
as one in a home. So I took that time to get to know my dad, and he to know me, you know, because it wasn't the same. But it was difficult, and you know, not knowing the language, not knowing the area, not knowing anything.
It had to have been hard.
Yeah, and you know, even growing up, I experienced racism. I experienced the bigotry that people, kids, for some reason, take up after their parents.
Yes.
And you'd be surprised to know that a lot of that bigotry and a lot of that racism came from my own people. It came
Really?
from the Latin community.
In what ways? What do you mean?
That I didn't speak English.
Oh.
For some reason, a lot of people think I look Arab. So, yeah, I got picked on all through elementary school. I got picked on through middle school.
Wow.
Yeah, in middle school, most of my time I spent in the library because I didn't have any friends.
That's how you ended up with 2 PhDs, 2 masters.
I don't have a PhD. I do have 2 masters.
2 masters, almost a PhD. You're a candidate.
I'm going after 2 PhDs.
Yes.
So,
and what, like a dozen bachelors, even more associates. You're just collecting them.
Yeah, I just collect degrees like that. But that would be towards the end.
No, yeah.
And we won't get to everything. I wanna touch on like the differences. For me, that was my experience going through middle school. Middle school.
Right.
And high school was not as rough. I did get picked on, but I did have a few friends,
right,
which made it tolerable. But I've always been interested in, you know, from a Latino to a Latina. It's a difference.
Yeah, but Latino, pero I look white. I mean, I don't think our childhood experiences could have been any different if anybody had scripted it. My parents divorced when I was 7. I don't really remember much before that, so for me it was just always my parents are apart. My dad is with Susie, my mom is with Miguel, because both of my step-parents have been in my life basically all of my life. So there was no like negativity towards the divorce. My mom worked her ass off to put me and my brother when she was a single mom at first through a private school for elementary school. So I went to private school. I still have friendships from when I was in elementary school from that
Really?
private school. I have one that I like consistently talk with. She's been my friend now for 20 years. Middle school we had moved, and my mom had gotten remarried, so I moved in with my stepdad. We moved to a upper middle class neighborhood. I think my middle school and high school experiences were movie-like. I wasn't popular, like I wasn't the head cheerleader or anything, but I was, you know, popular associated.
Popular by association.
Yes, I definitely. I mean, I was always known as like, oh, that's Heidi's best friend, or that's Travis's girlfriend, you know. But I was fairly well liked. I still have friends from high school. High school was fun. I enjoyed it. There was pep rallies. There was football games. I was on the volleyball team. I was involved. I either wasn't aware of it, or I never really saw bullying. I didn't see people getting picked on that much. I mean, there was And there was pretty much a stereotypical cliques. There was the jocks, my boyfriend at the time was a part of that. There was the nerdy kids, which, I mean, it's Walnut High School, so it's predominantly Asian. I was part of the IB program, which is a higher level international baccalaureate, I think it's called. So I was in AP classes. So like I said, I don't think our experiences could have been any different if we'd tried.
Very, very different. Yeah. I was a mediocre student. I think I got C's, not because I actually tried, but because I made friends with the teachers.
Oh, so
and they felt
like pity
sorry
C's?
for me. Yeah, the pity C's, like,
yeah, I guess I'll pass you.
Yeah, but yeah. He's got a good personality.
It's funny though, because we swapped then, because high school and middle school I was a very good student. I was in AP classes, IB program, and then college is where I started to struggle. And I think that's when it switched for you, is when you got to college is when you started really applying yourself and understanding how smart you are.
I don't know that. I think I just
You do too much of that self-deprecating stuff. You are very smart, very intelligent.
But yeah, my high school, the beginning of my school career, I guess, here in the States was very, very different.
But you started out at a disadvantage. You didn't speak the language.
Yeah. Which is why I started out the podcast, or the conversation, saying I don't have an accent.
Yeah.
Because when I was in elementary school, I got picked on so much for that accent that I made it a point to enunciate all of my pronunciations. And my fiance would say that I'm saying enunciate differently, but this is how I say enunciate.
I don't hear it differently. How to say it?
I think she says it differently.
Huh.
Yeah. Anyways, but I say enunciate.
Oh, I heard it now. Yeah, your pronunciation of the A in there is a little bit different. Not different. Wrong, just different.
No, it's potatoes, potatoes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So, but I think all of that experiences that I went through while I was in high school helped me out a lot, although it was a hasty decision, and it helped me in the decision that I took to join the military.
Right.
Because, I had been, bullied, picked on. I had been a mediocre student. I didn't like school. I was in sports. I played soccer, but I don't think I ever actually played soccer. I was just on the team because I think the coach felt sorry for me. I was in the cross country team, but I did like running, but it was just something to keep me occupied so that I didn't have to go home. Because my parents did get a divorce while I was in high school. And I utilized the opportunity to join the military as an escape. I just wanted. I knew that I wasn't going to be able to get into a good university, so that it would take me away from that place. Although it was a very, very loving environment, my mother always told me she loved me. My father always told me, and he still tells me he loves me every time we hang up. But it was a different environment for me, because my two older sisters were, often doing their own thing. My older sister got married while she was very young, had kids. My other older sister, Myra, very successful in college, and went off to gain very, very good employment right after high school. So I saw, although very different perspective of success, I saw them as successful, and I didn't think that I was going to be able to achieve something like that. So I needed.
Interesting. Do you know, why did you think that? Just because you weren't an adequate student, or what do you think fueled that lack of confidence?
Yeah, because I wasn't an adequate student. I didn't apply myself at anything. And the only thing that I thought I was decent at was some of the sports that I did. I was fairly good athlete, but not the best. But it gave me that sense of, okay, well, I can do something more physical and see if I can push myself and push my body, push my mind in a different direction. So at the end of my high school career, I decided to join the military. That was my out, which is, I mean, in hindsight, it was one of the best decisions I ever made. It developed me physically, mentally.
Yeah, definitely.
And allowed me to come out, although it was a very, very rough transition, which I want to get into on a different podcast.
Yeah.
But it was definitely one of the best decisions that I've made. Again, although rough, but I don't think I would have gone anywhere else. But the I don't know, it's just different.
I mean, I haven't known you for that long yet. We've known each other now for going on 2 years, but I can definitely see how the military turned you into who you are. I see the influence into the man you are sitting before me today, engaged to be married, raising 3 little pups. Like I can see the influence definitely, and in positive ways, not negative in any way. Your life is what you've created it because of the way you were able to take the transition, however rough, and restructure it and take the same things you learned and do what you've done with them. So I can see that, and I agree from an outside perspective of somebody that's known you for 2 years.
Yeah.
So.
But no, and I think that like even though it seems like I've had practice with transitioning, I mean transitioning from living in Guadalajara to transitioning from living there to living in San Diego to living in Southgate to living in, I've had many culture shocks, especially going in from, being a little Mexican kid speaking only Spanish to coming to the U.S. and having to learn the language, having to shift the culture,
Right.
And then integrating myself into academia or into this particular routine of school, going into middle school or elementary school and assimilating myself into that. And then, even the little transitions that I've done, going from living in my uncle's house in San Diego to my uncle's house in Southgate to a house that my dad was renting in Bowen Park, and then from Bowen Park my parents bought a house in Azusa. Like those little transitionings, although it might seem like I've had practice with the culture shock transition, it was still very stressful and high anxiety for.
Well, they're all unique experiences.
Yeah.
You can pull some things, but no two are the same.
Yeah, and then getting to that point and not figuring out who I was or what I needed to do or how I needed to develop, and then getting ripped away, still not trying to figure out what I was going to do, and then going into the military and being handed an identity that I ran with. I was like, okay. And unfortunately and I say unfortunately because that transitioning or that culture shock, as you call it, that going into the military and finding out things about myself that I didn't know, like pushing myself beyond my physical limits, my mental limits, made me a very, very arrogant individual while I was in the military, and even even when I transitioned out of the military. But it made me into somebody to this day I still don't like, and what we're doing is me, like what we developed Ten Hot and and Meal with the Vet and this podcast is still me trying to make up for a lot of that time. And I actually just had this discussion with my fiance, and we were talking about, is there true altruism? And she said, well, you do a lot of things for other people. And I said, well, it isn't, because I mean, I do like helping people, but it makes me feel better because I couldn't before.
Oh,
or
okay.
I couldn't make myself feel good about who I was
Right.
before. And it's been a long journey, but I mean, I still feel that need to try to correct my wrongs, I guess, or who I used to be.
That's interesting. That's an interesting topic too. Is there really true altruism? Because I like helping people. That's why I do this. I like talking to you, but it makes me feel good, and that's why I do it. So I don't know if there really is, because most people do things to feel good.
Yeah.
And I mean, nowadays with social media, everybody does it to post on Instagram anyway, which annoys me. But
I think that it happens in levels.
yeah,
Like, you do it at a very, very low self-fulfilling level, like or a selfish level. You do it at a minute, I want to feel good kind of a level.
mm-hmm.
And I think that nowadays that's lacking. That level is starting to increase where that definition of altruism gets a little faded, a little gray,
Okay.
because there's different levels.
You don't feel that you're on the same level as me? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I know what I'm trying to say, because you mentioned like social media and all of these individuals.
Yeah.
I don't think that they do it for.
No, they do it for recognition.
Yeah.
I do it because it makes me feel good. I feel like a better person, and I'm putting good out in the world, because I believe if I create goodness and abundance, I will live comfortably, and that's all that anybody can ever hope for.
Yeah.
But no, I'm asking you, because you mentioned you do it to feel good, yes, but as a sort of way to pay kind of reparations to who you were prior. So do you feel that there's a difference then between? Yeah?
I think so. I mean, like you mentioned, I've only known you for 2 years, but I don't think you have a malice bone in your body. And yeah, I don't think that you would need to right any wrongs in that high of a level. And for me, I guess it weighs on me how I used to be, to friends, my family, that I feel that I don't know if I'll ever be done.
It's interesting that you feel that. And maybe interesting is not the right word, because I don't know everything that you're referencing, because it's very clearly there's more than just how you treated friends and family. But your family, you haven't done anything irreversible. They're still there for you. They still love you.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? So it's from the outside looking in, it almost feels as if you're overly punishing yourself. But I don't know the real story, and maybe we'll get it, maybe we won't. I'm not going to ever push you for it, but the fact that you're doing it to kind of make up for how you used to be, it just means you and I are kind of doing the same thing and just trying to create balance in the world.
No.
So
No. I do get that. I just think that there's different levels, different to it. It's just, and I'm not saying that mine or yours is more altruistic than mine, or vice versa. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that if you were to see someone do something nice for someone else, I mean, I'm not going to immediately assume that they're doing it to make themselves feel better, or it's not altruistic. They're not doing it to actually help that individual.
right.
It's just at what level.
Right.
And it's the higher levels of selfishness that's when it starts hurting others.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you know, with the whole social media platforms and, you know, trying to make yourself either have that spotlight or, you know, have that recognition, as you
Right.
mentioned earlier, and be praised. You know, it's a sense of I don't know if we could still call it what is that, Munchausen. You know, the
Munchausen's?
yeah, Munchausen. There we go.
But that's
But I know when you hurt someone else to get the recognition
Yeah,
because yeah. But I don't know. It's a pretty interesting topic for.
it is, and I feel like we could have a whole other episode just on that, because being a civilian in the veteran space, doing what I'm trying to do, I feel like there's a lot of veterans who look at me with that perspective, questioning if it's truly altruistic or if I'm in it for something.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've actually gotten that reaction, like, well, what do you even do? Like, why are you even helping them? Veterans are popular nowadays, so everybody wants to help a veteran.
It's a big platform.
It's a big platform now, and it's something to be unpacked, I guess, maybe at another episode, but.
Yeah, which actually brings up a good point for me is, why am I doing what I'm doing? Why did I get connected with Pedro, our co-founder? Why start this podcast? Why start the company? You know, and it's like you mentioned, the reparations, or, you know, me either paying it forward or paying something back. And it isn't, especially coming from, you know, very, very humble beginnings, and then losing that humility, and then somehow getting kicked out of me and humbling myself, because I went from, you know, my parents doing everything in their power to give me what I needed, not everything I wanted, but definitely everything that I needed.
Right.
And then losing that humility in I guess overthinking, or you know, I overrepresented my abilities, or, you know, because I was always, especially in the military, I was always told, you know, holy shit, you're great at this, you're excelling at this. I graduated with honors from basic training. Like, I don't think I ever got a lower score in my PT test, my physical education, and at any time I was always over 300. I was always praised for my physical abilities, and that got to me, and then I don't know what happened. I lost my humility, and I don't. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's hard because my parents taught me better. Coming from a really tiny home in Guadalajara, which at the time when I was living there, I thought it was a humongous house.
That's all you knew.
Yeah, that's all I knew. But then I actually went back when I was 15. After many years, I went back and I was like, holy shit, this house is tiny. I think my apartment's bigger than that.
Yeah, I believe it.
And yeah, it's just losing that sense of humility and that level of humility that my parents always brought us up with. Really did a number on me.
I mean, I'm not a clinician, I'm not in the psychology field, but it seems like your transition into the States and then your whole middle school up to high school, you weren't praised. You said it, you weren't a great student, you were bullied, you were teased, but now in the military, now you're finally being praised, it almost feels as if you just drunk it in because you're trying to make up for all the years that you weren't getting that out from anybody that may not be your family.
Yeah. And I don't want to say that my family, my family did try to praise me, but I didn't do anything. I didn't excel at anything.
Right. But even if they did, how many times it's like, oh, you're my mom, you have to say you love me. You're my mom, you have to say that I'm cute. You know, like it doesn't hit as hard as if this stranger who's a general in the military tells you, hey, good job on your PT test. That hits differently.
Yeah.
And so you're craving this.
I don't think a general ever told me.
You know what I mean. I'm just like, if somebody
General Schweitzer's like,
somebody
good job, Pila.
that has some sort of authority over a position that you're in, you're suddenly drinking in all of this praise that you lacked for essentially 10 years, 9 to about 19 maybe.
Yeah.
So that's just the logic where my mind goes. I'm not.
No. I've sat down with married therapists, many a therapist. But and it just that that level of anxiety and I don't know. It's different for that, and I don't know how to put it, but it is different when I bring it back to that time period and then shift it to the choices that I've made on my own choices right after high school, which led me to that. But we'll keep talking about that in the next episode. Well, not next Wednesday because we'll be off. Yes,
next Wednesday we will be dark because, like I said last week, All Access Broadcasting is having a toy drive on Wednesday the 11th at Tres Vinos in West Covina. You can find information on their Facebook page or reach out to us. We'll give you all the information.
And there should be a flyer. There will be a flyer attached to this so that you can see all the information about Tres Vinos. It's a toy drive, so please, if you are going to attend, which we hope that you will, you bring a toy.
Yes.
Unwrapped.
Yes, please, unwrapped.
Yes, because we don't want
we need to know what you're bringing.
It's like a knife or some shit.
Yes. But before we end, though, we wanted to keep up the theme of mentioning organizations that help veterans that are out there. An organization that I came in contact with, goodness, it's been about 6 weeks now. They're a national organization. They're called the Warrior Brotherhood Veteran Motorcycle Club. They have clubs throughout the United States. I was introduced to a chapter in Victorville. Their motto is Vets Helping Vets. And I mean, we were talking about that through the whole thing. You are a vet, you like to help vets. It seems to be a common thread throughout that community. They host fundraising events periodically, and all funds that are raised go back into the veteran community. And they'll do small projects to fixing a veteran's deck on his house, to helping a veteran find housing. They do so many different things. If definitely look them up if you're interested. If you ride motorcycles, they're a good group to be around. Yeah. They're so welcoming to everybody. They're a fun group. So that's the veteran group of the week I want to highlight.
Well, no, that's a really good organization. I've actually heard a little bit about them. One of my buddies rides with them.
Okay.
So I won't mention his name because
you haven't asked him. You haven't asked permission.
I haven't asked permission. I kind of just remembered right now. But they're really, really good organization. If you are in need of any supportive services for anything, I know that Volunteers of America has a veterans program that helps you with rental assistance, which is the supportive SSVF, supportive services for veteran families. You can get a hold of them and they'll help you with any bills that you might have problems with, especially during the holidays. During the holidays, we tend to make certain choices to accommodate others. So I know that I have, and please reach out to them. That's SFBF program, that's Supportive Services for Veteran Families. They help you out with bills and are paying your rent. So if you're behind 1 or 2 months, they'll be able to help you. So reach out to.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's really, really good program. I've recommended a few veterans that are in need, and they did help out. So Volunteers of America would be able to help you. PATH, People Assisting the Homeless, has a really good veteran program that assists you with job placement. They also have VASH, which is housing assistance for veterans, which is kind of like Section 8. So that you'll be able to obtain housing that way. So if you're in need of housing, please reach out to them. It's VASH. I think that's
it.
Yeah, that's it. I know that. So in closing, I know that this particular episode was a little bit different. We wanted to talk about the veteran lifestyle, and we are going to be interviewing some of the vets, a lot of vets that have been going through a rough transitioning and really diving into what their life has been like before the military, during the military, and after the military, just like what I'll be doing for the next couple of episodes. And we'll break it up. Our next episode will be not this Wednesday,
it'll be the 18th.
11th, so it'll be the 18th. And we'll talk a little bit more about, my military career and my transitioning and why it is that we believe that we are fit to host this show.
Yep.
And Alex will definitely touch on, once we get to that portion, on why she is definitely a very, very good advocate for veterans and why she does what she does. So please join us on our next podcast on Wednesday, December the 18th at 7 p.m. and every Wednesday after that.
Every Wednesday. Maybe with one break here and there.
Yeah,
if we fall on a holiday, actually, there's some holidays that follow, so maybe. We'll let them know.
Oh, yeah, we'll let you know.
But otherwise, every Wednesday, we'll see you here on All Access Broadcasting.
And I have one request. Please, post some comments, ask us any questions, let us know what you think about the podcast and what you've thought. We've done 3 already, our intro. We've talked to Mark Dewey, which he has a phenomenal story. And if you want to listen more about his story, you can always listen to him on the Meal with the Vet podcast. Yep. Or let us know if you want him back, and we can dive in a little bit more, and we'll have a medical professional here so that he can help us out on navigating through some of those tough questions and helping us out on how to close those wounds when they
That'd
do.
be a really good
deep.
idea. We should do that.
Yeah. I do have clinician friends.
You do?
Yeah.
All right.
So, thank you so much.
Bye, guys. Good night.
Have a good night.